Hi everyone, welcome to 33 Voices. Chase and I are delighted to be here today with the co-founder and director of Fab Lab, Katie Rast. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
All right, and now, so you are pioneering the makers movement. Can you tell us what it means to be a maker then?
Yeah, good question. So I love the term maker because it is really all encompassing. So oftentimes it is related to technology. People consider themselves hackers or makers, and oftentimes that might mean you're building a robot or something like that, or tinkering with your 3D printer. But you could just as easily be a home craft brew beer maker, or you could be a knitter and sweater maker, or an arts and crafts for kids maker. So it really throws a big wide net and is very representative of the creative desire to do things and make things.
You're a maker in building a company even.
Yeah, absolutely. So entrepreneurs are always makers, whether their company is service oriented or product oriented. Absolutely, startups represent makers as well.
Yeah, you've discussed that a maker designs a product, creates the product, and then uses the product. So this is changing the future for us because we've never had a possibility to go through all of the steps by ourselves. What are you envisioning?
Well, so there's something very empowering, and actually I take from a quote that President Obama said a few years ago about being a creator, not just a consumer. And there is something inherently empowering in that action. And I find that both with adults and people who are developing their own products, as well as with kids and people who are making things for fun, in all cases, if you made it, even if it's imperfect, even if it's held together with duct tape, if you made it, you have a lot of pride about it. And it's very different than going to the store and purchasing it. So that's one piece of it. And that pride plays into the impetus that leads into creating companies, creating products, driving ultimately that creative spirit that lends itself toward manufacturing. But ultimately, we're interested in something that's hard to quantify, and that is that pride, that is that sense of ownership. And especially when we work with kids and young adults, we find that just as much as we see the necessity in them being well prepared to, say, go into college or go into the job market in terms of academic knowledge, we also need them to be able to go up and shake somebody's hand. And that's the harder thing to teach. You can get somebody to memorize a formula, but to make them feel that they belong and that they have a presence in that job market or in that academic pursuit is what actually we see sets people apart and lends itself toward them being successful later in life.
And you've used the word capable, which I love, is that you want our children, for the next generation, to feel capable. And you just touched on in your Go San Diego talk that as citizens in San Diego, we need to feel capable to make our city what we want it to be.
Yes.
And you talked about a city's brand. Can you explain that and the pride that you have in San Diego?
Absolutely. Yeah. So San Diego, we have so many amazing things. I mean, we obviously don't even need to touch on the weather and the beaches and all of that.
We're the finest city.
The finest city, right? But in addition to that, we have all kinds of innovative, once again, overused word, but truly we do. We have a lot of innovative community represented here. We have an amazing biotech hub. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, now we are becoming a hub for unmanned aerial vehicle production. We have a lot of robotics here locally. We obviously have telecom and the chips that drive everyone's cell phone in the world. I mean, so there are all these wonderful things that we can point to. We have creatives of so many different types. But we're still, I feel, forming our identity, exactly. And so one of the most important things in forming that is to represent ourselves and also see ourselves represented. So things like this, Go San Diego, Startup Week, it makes me truly proud and happy because I see all these people coming together. They're breaking down the barriers. They're hanging out. They're talking, but they're also making plans. And so what we really want to see in terms of the civic engagement piece is a bottom-up approach to where we don't have to always say, wait for a top-down approach that asks us to be engaged, but we intervene into the civic activities of our city. And that's where the idea of urban hacking, or civic hacking rather, and urban prototyping comes in. It's saying, let's make something that causes you to be engaged with your city. Maybe it's using public data, or maybe it's making a pop-up stage where people are going to do street performances and get you to think about your neighborhood in a new way.
Right, so it all starts with that discussion. We were seeing in there that there was a big discussion of getting STEM and STEAM into schools. What do you think what's it gonna take to get makers inside of elementary schools?
They're already in there. They're full of them. So, I mean, I think in approaching how we, train our next generation, one of the most important things is that methodology, right? How are they going to learn? It's not just what they're going to learn, it's how are they going to learn it. So something that allows for an experience, there are findings, and we have found that really gives back to that lifelong piece. And that's the transformative piece, right? Once again, it's not everyone needs to learn to count, everyone needs to know the alphabet. Obviously, that's incredibly important, but what's the process with that? How are you going to feel about yourself through that process? What's going to engage you? Is it going to be personalized and work for you, or is it going to be kind of a one-fits-all approach? And how do we make that more meaningful so that we come out, or so that out of that process come these engaged citizens that will go on to continue to be that way?
So how do you think you sustain that once they graduate? How do you let them know they can pursue careers along this line?
It's a good question. I mean, honestly, I would hope that that drive would be there. And I think that for the students that I've worked with that I've seen exposed to this type of process, they get exposed to mentors, they get exposed to communities, they become a part of a community. And oftentimes that lends itself to them graduating with a lot more access to people that can help them along the way than if they weren't exposed to those experiences and communities.
You've emphasized the ability that this technology is going to bring us to create things in our own city. And so as far as manufacturing and shipping goes, this is really going to be a big push for sustainability.
Sure.
Katie, are you envisioning a time where in San Diego, when we need something, we go to all local stores and we get it? Is that a possibility?
I think possibly, right? And it's not to say that we absolutely should never buy something that was created in another place. It's just to say, let's start local. Let's at least look at that piece and not forget that piece, because it is easy to do that. And I think in San Diego especially, we have this really powerful regional capability where we are minutes from Mexico, and right there I think represents a great opportunity for us to build more bridges and create more pathways for communication, sharing information, and sharing the ideation and manufacturing capabilities that exist on both sides as well.
So in addition to the educational component, your innovation lab is one of the first hardware.
Yeah.
I mean, so really we want to know what's coming out of there. What products do you have on the way?
It's a great question. So we did dive into the hardware development side of things, and we did that fairly recently, about a year and a half ago. And one of the reasons we did that is because, in all honesty, it grew out of something very organic. We've kind of always done that. We didn't always put the title on it, right? So, but what that meant to us was that we saw that there was a need within the community, and we saw that there were these extraordinary people with fantastic ideas who just needed a few things along the way to completely shoot them into the next level. And so just like we want to support our next generation of inventors, we have the people here now who are involved in the process, who have created fantastic products and who have great companies behind them. And we've had the true honor of helping people come in with ideas. And we always joke that we get these wonderful things that are like taped together and look ridiculous and are made up of stuff they found in their kitchens, and they go, this is going to be something that, you know, gives you real-time feedback about your consumption habits or whatever. And we're like, really? Because it kind of looks like a water bottle with duct tape on it. And we've been able to help those folks actually create their products. And then once they have that prototype, it's so much easier for them to get into the next level of getting seed funding and, you know, pushing their companies along. So to answer your question, so one company that we're working with right now is called Gladius. This is a local inventor named Andre who is a below-the-knee amputee and has developed a prosthetic device that allows people like him who do all of these super hardcore endurance triathlon things to be able to do everything on one leg instead of having to change for different occasions or change for different terrain. And so what we've worked with him on is really exposure and access and ideation, and we've helped him develop something called a fairing, which is essentially the sort of aesthetic piece that goes around the device and lends itself to kind of a more calf-like shape and can have all sorts of interesting design features. And that was actually just featured at the White House on Wednesday, which was really a wonderful thing to see happen. And so that's one local entrepreneur that we've been able to help. We just graduated from our experimentation round, a group called Feats, and they actually did go to Chattanooga, Tennessee, and I touched on Gig Tank and the Gig City project that's happening there. And they are doing 3D printed soles of shoes. So they're doing 3D printed shoes, and the idea is that you can 3D model and scan your foot and use all these different interesting materials that are available to create custom insoles and custom fit for your foot. Custom fit for your foot.
Those are great examples of how people are getting involved in the community. But what are some tangible ways that we can close with for everyday users to say, here's how I can be a maker today?
That's a great question. Wow. I mean, I think that how you can be a maker today is to just take that lingering idea, whatever it might be. I'm always amazed to hear about everyone's kind of secret invention or secret passion project that they've always wanted to make, and just take whatever the next step is in creating it, and just keep in mind that it's an iterative process and that failure is a part of it and successes are a part of it. And even if the first step is making it out of paper mache or drawing it on a napkin, it's one step closer, and you've got to start somewhere. So I think embracing failure is a huge, important part of being a maker.
So for everyone who wants to be a maker with Fab Lab,
specifically,
let's tell them how they can get in touch with you guys.
Okay, so you can visit us at fablabsd.org. You can also follow us on that same Twitter or Facebook handle, and certainly you can come, if you're here in person, you can come and check us out. We do an open house just about every Saturday from 2 o'clock on, and we just bring the community in, and everyone's free to bring their stuff that they're working on, and we have all sorts of great people in the space making things and sharing ideas.
And it's in La Jolla?
It is in Kearny Mesa, up off of Convoy Ave, 4685 Convoy Ave, above Pangea Bakery.
All right.
Yeah, in the Ansier Village, as we're calling it.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys, I appreciate it.